Local news, national news, even feel-good news, delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I am so excited to be on the radio with you guys tonight. We have a lot to go over, a lot to unpack. We've got Governor DeSantis saying that he wants to destroy leftism. He wants to get rid of liberalism. We've got some amazing audio from kind of a washed-up actor, but he is very angry with the Democrats right now. We're going to get into that coming up in a moment. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Indy 500 is over the weekend. It's always on Memorial Day weekend, and some people are pretty displeased with the performance of the National Anthem. We're going to get to that coming up as well, so y'all stick around for that. First, though, I'm so excited to welcome to the show right now the acting executive director of the Downtown Development Board, the community redevelopment agency in Orlando. It's David Barilla. David, welcome to the Joe Kelley Show. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Joe.
And
appreciate the invite.
You have a lot of exciting stuff going on in your sphere right now, and I'm reasonably sure you all had a meeting today to discuss some of that. And I saw this in the initially in the Orlando Business Journal, but there are some pretty big projects that the Community Redevelopment Agency is looking at right now. And I'd like to go through some of those items, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's start with the Bob Carr Theater. I love the Bob Carr Theater. I love the architecture of the Bob Carr Theater. And like all the rest of our venues, it closed during the pandemic. What I never realized was that it didn't reopen. It's been closed since the pandemic. So what are the plans for the Bob Carr Theater?
Sure. So the Bob Carr Theater, as you probably know, it's been a part of our community since 1927. And as you stated, it was about March of 2020 when it closed down with the pandemic. We were fortunate, obviously, to have the Dr. Phillips Center for Performing Arts that filled that gap. But it really allowed us to take a step back and start to think about what the next stage, what the next evolution of that Bob Carr Theater, could and potentially should be. So as you may know, it sits, smack dab within the Creative Village footprint.
Yep.
And Creative Village now anchored by, EA Sports and really focusing on gaming and innovation. We've been having conversation as to, how can the Bob Carr Theater, best serve, the next generation of our community? And that's kind of contextually, I think, what you're seeing the Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board, that's the meeting that you mentioned that was held earlier today, acknowledge. So what that effectively did was kind of identify that the Bob Carr, is an integral part of downtown. It's an integral part of Creative Village, and sets it up to receive, significant investment, really to reposition it. We don't have the specifics on exactly what that is today, but as you can imagine, those conversations, should this ultimately get its full approval and included into the plan, will continue to unfold. I think that will be really focusing on, an innovation hub, not only for our downtown, but our region and hopefully our state and beyond.
So, David, moving forward, it may not be a venue, an entertainment venue, but it's still going to be used in some way, shape, or form?
So it will absolutely be used. I mean, the Bob Carr is a city facility, and it's absolutely, intended at this point to stay that way. But when you think about how people gather and how downtown has evolved and how it can best suit the city and the community around it, I think those are the exact conversations that we're having. As I mentioned, I think that will be heavily focused on innovation and tech that Creative Village is looking on. Obviously, the community that it sits in within Paramore as well. I think from a performing arts component and theater component, we really see the Dr. Phillips Center for Performing Arts doing an excellent job in filling that need.
Sure.
So want to look at what other needs we can fill with the Bob Carr.
And for those that don't know, maybe you're new to Orlando like so many people are, or maybe you've just never been to an event at the Bob Carr Theater. But the Bob Carr Theater, one of the things I love most about it, the architecture, in that it is truly a theater inside a theater. And that is so unique. Can you kind of explain that?
Sure. So, the Bob Carr in and of itself, I think, as I mentioned, was originally about 1927, and it's gone several renovations, over that period. I mean, it's been almost 100 years, right, since then. So if you haven't been there, actually, when you walk in, what you just described, Joe, was kind of the original area, the original facade of the building that you can almost experience, the original theater that you walk into. But behind that is kind of the last rendition or the addition where if you attended a Bob Carr event, in the last, 15 or 20 years before it was ultimately shut down is where you sat. So while we go through this next component, it's really trying to see how we can, pay homage to the history that's obviously encapsulated there, but also, put it to good use so the community can access it again and drive value from it.
All right, let's talk about Lake Eola Park. If you're just joining us, we're talking to David Barilla. He is the acting executive director of the Downtown Development Board, the community redevelopment agency. And David, Lake Eola Park is clearly the crown jewel for the city of Orlando park system. And, I mean, it is a gorgeous facility that originated as a sinkhole. Heaven knows how long ago that started out as a sinkhole, but it's a beautiful park. We walk around it at least once a week. What does the board envision for future developments there at Lake Eola Park?
Yeah, so, interesting you mentioned like how it started as a sinkhole. It's actually, not sure if you're aware, it's celebrating its 140th anniversary this year.
Wow.
At the park. It was originally, there was a gentleman by the name of Jacob Summerlin who donated a piece of land at the park around, the sinkhole as you described it, to the city under the context that it would be, utilized and improved as a park space. And now we can see here we are 140 years later, having these conversations and continuing to double down on the vision that they set. So we underwent a visioning process along with the city and the parks team over the past several years. The culmination of that was the Lake Eola Master Plan. Lake Eola, as you pointed out, is not only the centerpiece of downtown and our city, but it's also for our region. It was originally designed to host just, several thousand people in that park per week and per year. It hosts almost 3 million people now per year, and so it became vastly apparent that more investment, being more creative, looking at ultimately what the community's desires were out of that park, and that ended in a very well-recognized Lake Eola Master Plan. It won several awards, one of them from the International Downtown Association last year. But when you think about the projects that are coming out of that, there's a multitude, some of which are really looking at better ways to treat water. As many people know, you say it's a sinkhole, but also a lot of water that just falls in downtown, whether it be on the buildings or the streets, gets drained into Lake Eola. So you think about low-impact development, and we wanted to find ways to be able to treat that water in environmentally sustainable ways and sensitive ways and integrate it more safely and permanently into the lake. Also, it's more to make it more welcoming for residents of all ages. So you think about having enhanced kids' play zones where you can actually access the water, potentially with beach areas, having like a swan beach, enhancing the swan boats access and the dock associated with that, potential splash pads where people of all ages, love to access and play, enhancing the concession areas, and really just taking a step back and making sure the park just has a holistic feel and approach and works no matter where or when you choose to recreate in it.
We're talking to David Barilla. He's with the City of Orlando. He's the acting executive director of the Downtown Development Board. And lastly, I want to talk to you about the project under I-4. I don't know, it was like 5 years or so ago before we really got started on the I-4 Ultimate project, and I remember standing under I-4 with Mayor Buddy Dyer, and I interviewed him with his vision for a park under I-4, and I was blown away at the vision for a park under I-4 right in the heart of downtown. And then in the last, I don't know, year, 18 months or so, I could swear I read a report that came out that said that the park plan had been canceled and it was just going to be parking spaces under I-4. I was dashed. I was disappointed. I went into a long stretch of depression. It was terrible. And now, am I to understand now that at least part of that park is going to be back in place now?
Yeah, absolutely. It never actually was completely gone, Joe. So I'm terribly sorry to hear, even though the mental anguish it may have put you through.
Oh, it was horrible.
But you're absolutely right. Yeah, so the re-envisioned park and, the original Under Eye Park we were talking about when you interviewed the mayor, it was the vision of looking at, that area that we had underneath, Ultimate Eye, which we now call it, and really finding a way that it can serve for the community to gather, so on and so forth. A lot of time has passed, obviously, since then. And when we looked at the varying demands that people were placing in downtown, the amount of space that we have there, and also, just the condition of the environment that we were left with now that the construction of I-4 is ultimately complete, we just saw, some different opportunities that we wanted to take advantage of. One of them is we wanted to expand the area. So previously, the area was really only focused on that main corridor under I, whereas if you're standing at, Church and Garland and you look north, pretty much you can kind of see where the elevation drops down around Central, a little north of that, and the activation of that area. We really saw the need to expand that and look at all the underpasses, not only that main one that I just spoke about, but all the way up to Colonial. So you can think about, where Amelia transverses underneath and Livingston and so on and so forth. So just looking at all those components. But then specifically in that main area, when we looked at how much space you have, some of your listeners, or you may even be familiar with, the High Line. And there's actually enough room to fit a High Line-like park, one of the most kind of premier urban parks that we've seen as of lately, on both the east and west sides of Under I, while still encompassing kind of a multi-format space in the middle, which is what you're hearing referred to as parking. Is it intended to be utilized as parking? Yes, absolutely. We've heard, loud and clear from the community that they had a strong love for easy, accessible, ground level, parking. So we wanted to meld that together with both iconic and unique park space that we could use in a multi-format event. So it may be parking, let's say 5 days out of the week. When we have large events, those can be programmed there to showcase a variety of different things out in the community, while also focusing on a very unique connection on that Church Street corridor, so we can link both our west side of Church Street and our east side of Church Street, so our downtown and our Paramore area. And looking a lot at technology. I don't know if you've been to Luminary Green and the Orlando sign that we have there, or have seen some of the
oh my gosh, that's so beautiful there. And there's like a light show every night.
That's just it. There's a light show every night, and it really allows us, to be flexible. That specifically, that can be programmed for specific events. We have the one that's stationary there now, but we're looking at how we do that under I in unique ways to focus on what's happening, whether it be a concert at Emery Center or a Magic game or so on and so forth, or maybe just, an interesting night in downtown. So we're trying to kind of, learn from all the successes we've had of late and continue to enhance those so the community can hopefully have all the bits and pieces of things that they want, and from the CRA's perspective, play that financial role and help bringing those to fruition.
Sounds great, David. Sounds really, really exciting. Last question for you. I know a lot of our listeners are thinking, yeah, that sounds great, but it also sounds expensive. Where does this money come from? I know that Mayor Jerry Demings and Mayor Buddy Dyer have often spoken about the tourist development tax, but that's not this, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah. Who I represent, the Community Redevelopment Agency, was effectively created in the early 1980s. And without dragging you through all the details, effectively, there is a specific area, it's about 1,600 acres around downtown Orlando, that the tax base, the ad valorem tax base since then kind of goes into a separate fund. So the city and the county continue collecting ad valorem taxes as they did at that date, but any additional through property appreciation or new development goes into a separate fund that we can invest only within that area. So that's effectively the pot of money, so to speak, that we're looking to help with all of these improvements. Will it be all of it? I think it's a little too early to say if we'll foot the entire bill. I think we'll look for partners around us to help bring these, to full completion. But that's the context that we're talking about today.
Man, I knew you were the right guy to break this all down for us. David Barilla, he is the acting executive director of the Downtown Development Board, the Community Redevelopment Agency. David, thank you so much for sharing all this information with me and with our listeners. This is really good information, and I'm very excited about the future of the City Beautiful.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, man. Have a great day, great night, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. David Barilla, again, the acting executive director of the Downtown Development Board. You can share your thoughts with Downtown, with the City of Orlando at 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326, or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. We've got a lot going on here tonight. Coming up in a few minutes, we're gonna talk about Governor DeSantis says he wants to get rid of leftism in the United States.
Hello, my name is Hap, and I wanted to respond to something that Joe said about Ron DeSantis wanting to get rid of leftism. Joe, you called it then liberalism, and I want to point out that leftism and liberalism are two very, very different things. If DeSantis said he wanted to get rid of liberalism, that's one thing, but if he said he wanted to get rid of leftism, that's another thing entirely.
Yeah, that is interesting, as I have always just kind of put leftism and liberalism into the same basket, but there are distinct differences between leftism and liberalism. As an example, a liberal is someone on the American political spectrum. A leftist is someone on the left side of it. I think the differences are pretty minor in some cases. I have yet to see massive differences between liberalism and leftism, but I'm still kind of digging into that. So if you have thoughts on and by the way, for you and I appreciate your open mic bringing that to my attention, that there's a difference between leftism and liberalism, but you didn't give examples. You didn't give examples of the difference between leftism and liberalism and how they are in fact different. We also said that that PetSmart now, that people are boycotting PetSmart because they now have a pride display, and people are evidently bent out of shape about that.
Hey, Joe, PetSmart selling pride products? Oh, my goodness. Dogs and cats will be living together. It's the end of all time.
Yes. What if you have a cat that identifies as a dog? I mean, honestly, stranger things have happened, right? There's always the possibility of that. Hey, don't forget, your next chance to win $1,000 in the WDBO payroll payout is coming up tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We are following a little bit of breaking news. If you recall the show, That 70s Show, actor Danny Masterson has now been found guilty of 2 out of 3 counts of rape in a retrial. That 70s Show star Danny Masterson found guilty of 2 counts of rape in a retrial. He will be going to jail. It's 5:30. We'll continue next.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
Hey, there's a sponsorship change out at Camping World Stadium for the bowl games. You'll recall last year we had 2 Cheez-It Bowls. We had 2 bowl games that were sponsored by Cheez-Its last year. This year, we're only going to have 1 Cheez-It Bowl. The other bowl is going to be named the Pop-Tarts Bowl. During the Cheez-It Bowls, they give out like Cheez-Its and stuff there during the game. I will go to a game if they're giving out Pop-Tarts. I will buy tickets and go if they're giving out Pop-Tarts. But it's got to be the frosted kind of Pop-Tarts. The non-frosted Pop-Tarts, I will never understand why anybody would do the non-frosted Pop-Tarts. Previous title sponsors of the bowl game there have included Blockbuster. How'd that work out for Blockbuster? CarQuest, Micron, Mazda, Champs Sports, Russell Athletic, and Camping World. Cheez-It will remain the sponsor of the Citrus Bowl after assuming that role last season. This, according to the Orlando Sentinel. The game remains a New Year's Day staple as the top Tier 1 bowl game schedule outside the playoffs. It'll air on ABC, kickoff at 1 p.m. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl is going to be December 28th. That'll be the 9th sponsor associated to that game in the 34-year tradition. That game will be broadcast on ESPN. It'll start at 5:45 p.m. So there you go. The Pop-Tarts Bowl. I hope they're giving out Pop-Tarts at the Pop-Tarts Bowl. So there's some people that are agitated out at Disneyland and thus agitated with Disney in general as a mom who took her daughter to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo boutique. And Laurel, could you kind of explain, I think you know this better than I do, but can you explain what the Bibbidi Bobbidi boutique is?
Yeah, sure. So you take your little one, I don't know the age ranges, but they usually are kiddos, to this area of the castle in Disney World, and they do up their hair real pretty and put on makeup, and they get to pick an outfit. If it's a girl, makeup and hair, and they get to pick a dress. Boys can dress up like a knight, and you get a cool costume and a cool, makeup do-up to run around the parks all day and take cute pictures.
So it's like a makeover day for little girls and their parents, and it's just a fun event for them. I'm sure it's expensive. Everything is. But I'm sure it's one of those memorable events, and you take pictures and you document it, and it's great, and everybody loves it. They have it both at Disneyland and here at Disney World. But something has grabbed the attention of the the rage machine, if you will. People are now angrier at Disney because one of the cast members there, the fairy godmother's apprentice, wearing a dress, wearing makeup, and wearing a mustache with a man's name. It's a man, definitely a man, in drag, in women's clothing at Disney. Here's just a real little clip of the video. It's him talking.
So my name's Nick. I'm one of Fairy Godmother's apprentices. I'm here to shop you around and make all your selections for the day.
So he says, my name is Nick. I'm one of the Fairy Godmother's apprentices, and I want to shop around and make all your selections for the day. Some 7.6 million people have viewed that video since it was posted on May 26th, and it's been met with huge backlash. Conservative writer Peachy Keenan says, a man in drag is not only bizarre and inappropriate, but it takes the guests out of the show. The illusion is broken. And I like that part of the argument, that the illusion is broken. You know, when you go to Disney, there's a reason why there's that berm that's built all the way around Disney. It's to take you out of the world we live in and into the special world of the magical and make-believe at Disney. And when you suddenly see a dude in a mustache and makeup and a dress, then suddenly the illusion is broken. What do you guys think, though, of a man playing a woman in a children's boutique at Disney, and keeping in mind that everybody pretty much seems to hate Disney right now? And I saw a really interesting piece today in the news, and it's in the proverbial stack of stories here, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Here it is. So this is out of thestreet.com, which I think is a CBS publication, but it's a business publication. But the headline reads, DeSantis puts Walt Disney in an impossible situation. And it really speaks to some of the polling data that we shared with you last week, that in a lot of these, first-in-the-nation primary states, the first-in-the-nation voting states, that they have a general distaste for Disney. There is not a lot of love for Disney in those early voting states. And I thought Ron DeSantis was heading down a misguided path going after Disney. But now it really seems that DeSantis knew what he was doing all along. And I was simply holding on to my childhood beliefs of Disney being wholesome and wonderful. And Disney has obviously made a whole lot of changes since that time. Triple team traffic now as we check that drive here on a, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon with Paul Cross. Hello, Paul. It's a short work week for us.
Yeah, lots of brake lights, though, this afternoon, Joe. I-4 westbound from Parr onto the 408 eastbound still remains heavy there. We do have a crash, Old Winter Garden Road eastbound before Apopka Vineland Road with the right lane shut down. And broken down vehicle on the ramp. Looking at it now on the northbound 417 exit ramp to Lake Nona Boulevard. It's on the right shoulder, but part of its back end here is sticking into that right lane, so be careful when you exit there. This report sponsored by ePass, the portable uni by ePass, now available in black, a toll pass that blends into your windshield, finally. And uni works on toll roads in 19 states, so get yours today on Amazon or at gowithuni.com. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
Coming up in a moment, did you guys watch the Indy 500 over the weekend? The race itself was interesting, but the national anthem was performed by Snaggletooth. What's her name? Jewel. Jewel sang the national anthem, and she rearranged the national anthem. And man, nothing angers people faster than messing with the national anthem. And even though she didn't change the lyrics, she only changed the arrangement. The lyrics were exactly the same, but people were really upset about it. I know that this is not the best audio quality, but listen to this. I'll be honest with you. As long as you don't mess with the words, I don't mind if you rearrange the national anthem. I frankly kind of like this version of it. It reminds me a bit of Chris Stapleton's version during the Super Bowl, which was also arranged slightly different, and I loved that version. But take a listen. If you didn't watch the Indy 500, here is Jewel, who, by the way, if memory serves, she's Canadian. I think she is a Canadian citizen. She might be an American citizen now, but I think she was born in Canada. But here she is singing the national anthem, but the music part of it has been rearranged.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red guns bursting in there gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sad does that star-spangled banner wave o'er the land of the free and the
There you go, Jewel. I knew I knew I remembered she was from up north, but I didn't go north enough. She is an American. She's actually Alaskan. She was born in Alaska, not Canada, so she is a U.S. born. But didn't you guys love that version of the national anthem, or am I alone? Am I the only one who liked that? Laurel, you're a bit of a musician. Did you like that rendition of the national anthem?
I did, and I agree with you. If you're not changing the words, you're not changing the meaning. But, what's the,
Paul Cross,
great.
what do you think, a PC?
I thought that was very respectful. There was nothing disrespectful about that. I think it was meaningful. I think it actually pulled some emotion to me.
And look, I'm not a musician, but the arrangement of the classic national anthem is really hard to follow sometimes, and we've seen more singers screw up the national anthem because it's just a hard song to sing. It's a hard song, and to rearrange it, maybe to make it a little bit easier to sing, or maybe make it sound better. I'm totally down for that. What do you guys think? 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. The very definition of conservatism is you want to conserve things just as they are. You don't like change. Change sucks. So I would imagine a lot of conservatives don't like that version of the national anthem. I am a conservative, but I also like new things. I like new stuff, and I like a new version of the national anthem as long as the words don't change. Let me know now, 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Your next chance to win the WDBO payroll payout of $1,000 happens tomorrow at 8 a.m. during Orlando's morning news. Just listen for the keyword and then tap the payroll payout button in the WDBO app.
$1,000.
$1,000.
Get paid just for listening to WDBO.
This is awesome.
Well, if you're just joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show, we're talking about a number of topics right now. Some new developments coming to downtown Orlando. We're talking about Jewel, who performed the national anthem at the Indy 500. We're talking about a man dressed as a woman working at Disneyland at the Bippity Boppity Boutique. This dude has a mustache and is dressed in a dress and has makeup on. I don't understand the trans culture in the first place, but I certainly don't understand dressing as a woman and then having a deliberate facial hair, a deliberate mustache, or a deliberate beard. That just confuses me, and I'm certain that confuses little children as well.
I do not like Jewel's rendition. I liked Chris Stapleton's, but I thought she went too far off the tracks.
Yeah, so we'll count you down for no on that rendition, the new arrangement there from Jewel during the Indy 500 for the national anthem.
Yes, Joe, that version of the national anthem is woke gay. And I can understand why you would love it.
Oh, you're so full of sunshine. Thank you.
Yeah, Jewel's version of the national anthem was probably the worst in history by far.
Yeah, so a lot of people not liking that. That's, again, if you make changes to, people can't tolerate change. Change is bad.
I used to be a huge Disney fan. I am just blown away with everything going on right now. I mean, what is Bob Iger thinking? I mean, he actually thinks it's okay to teach kids in school about gender in first, second, and third grade levels. Also, you're taking your little kids to the parks, and now they say a cross-dressing man with a mustache? To me, it would be like looking at a pedophile.
844-580-WDBO. Mark is joining us in Orlando. Hey, Mark, you're on the Joe Kelley Show.
Hey, Jewel's version of the national anthem, she was homeless. Maybe that's what the national anthem sounds like to her while she's riding down the road in the car, living in her car with her mom. She didn't have it. She didn't have it the way the rest of us had it. Maybe that's the way it looks from the way she grew up. But that's art. Also, it sounded like possibly her monitor mix, she couldn't hear herself. It's very possible. But nevertheless, that's art. She didn't change the words. She did a nice rendition of it. It didn't have the power and punch and the pop and the circumstance, but it certainly had heart, and
Good.
I'll give her that.
Very good thoughts there, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Let's go to Kissimmee, where Anton is joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Anton.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, so I felt that the rendition was pretty good.
I didn't mind it. Now, it seemed like it was a lot longer than the actual national anthem. I was a color guard member.
Yeah.
I was a color guard member in the Navy when I worked for DIA, and I would have been really frustrated holding the flag for as long as that song went. I think it definitely went a little bit longer than the actual national anthem.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head how long the national anthem usually goes?
Oh, no.
Because that was it was 2 minutes and 22 seconds for Jules' version. I'll look it up here during the break and we'll see. Thank you so much, Anton. Thanks for your service, by the way, in the Navy. Thank you for listening to WDBO. We'll get more of your calls and comments coming up straight ahead. Plus, the curious case of the 16-year-old dead cat that is causing some controversy. We'll get into that coming up next.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Got a broken down vehicle 528 eastbound right before McCoy Road. Another stalled vehicle on Orange Blossom Trail northbound at Land Street. That one stuck there in the right lane. And a crash on Old Winter Garden Road eastbound before Apopka Vineland Road. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Orlando's news and talk. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Well, welcome to our second hour of the Joe Kelley Show. If you're just joining us, we have been talking about a Disneyland employee that works at the Bippity Boppity Boutique. Is a dude wearing a dress, makeup, and a mustache, and is taking little girls, throughout the paces there at the Bippity Boppity Boutique and getting their hair done and all that kind of stuff. And the dude in the dress with the makeup and the mustache, his name is Nick.
So my name's Nick. I want to carry on the list of princesses. I'm here to shop you around and make all your selections for the day.
So that was Nick there. Also, we're talking about the national anthem as Jewel, Alaskan native Jewel, sang the national anthem at the Indianapolis 500, and she rearranged the music. The lyrics were the same, rearranged the music.
Oh, say, can you see?
So we're talking about that. Let me throw something else onto the discussion right now. There is a TikToker, a content creator on TikTok who had a 16-year-old cat named Loki. And let me loop Laurel into the discussion here. Laurel, you are our chief pet correspondent. You're the expert on all things pet related. And this woman, this 35-year-old woman named Soren High, she had a 16-year-old black cat named Loki, but the cat was killed by a foster dog back in February. So instead of doing whatever you do when a pet dies, which is typically what? You bury it in the backyard?
Bury it or get it cremated, yeah.
Get it cremated or something like that. She had 16-year-old black cat Loki freeze-dried.
Yeah, so I saw a TikToker of somebody who just did that as well, and it's freaky. It is.
It's crazy.
So they take all the internal organs out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes they leave the heart, sometimes they don't. But yeah, they freeze dry it, and apparently they say as long as you take care of it and don't put it in a human environment, it'll stay just as long as a taxidermied one. But I don't know. I don't understand taxidermying your pets either. So
yeah, I love my pets. Some days less than other days, but I love my pets. But when they die, I'm not going to seek to keep them around longer.
Somebody asked this particular TikToker in her comments, they're like, doesn't it make you sad when you look over and see their body just there? And they're like, no, I love that they're still with me. And I'm like, that's not how I would feel.
And this particular woman, I don't know what it costs for all of them. I reached out to the company that does the freeze drying of pets, and I haven't heard back from them yet. But this woman says she spent nearly $3,000 to freeze dry her cat. And then I guess you can freeze dry your pet in multiple positions. If you had a dog and you want your dog laying down on a dog bed, you can have your dog freeze-dried laying down, or freeze-dried, if your dog is a pointer, he's pointing, or if your dog was hit by a car, the look on the dog's face right before the car hit the dog.
So Marie says, what's the difference if it's a cat or a deer? And I would argue that I feel like the deers are trophies. Like, I didn't love and pet and cuddle with the deer before it was killed.
I'd like to just point out, first of all, you said deers.
Deers.
Sorry. It's all right. And yeah, I think that's right, because first of all, every deer looks alike. And you can't tell one deer from another. And the deers aren't your deers. I just said deers.
See?
Hard. Damn it. So the deers aren't your friend. You don't name them. You don't feed the deers. So yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't even get a deer taxidermied either, or freeze dried or anything else like that. I think that's kind of weird. If you're going to shoot and kill something, eat it. Use it to the best that you can. And then move on. Well, okay, so what do you guys think about freeze-drying your pets? You can let us know, 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. I want to go to Ellen in Sanford. Ellen, you're a musician, and I want to get your take on Jules' version of the national anthem. You heard a lot of the open mics there, Ellen. A lot of people are hating on that version.
Well, I'm offended because I've taught the national anthem to children for 40 years. And, I taught them the correct, what it is. Yeah, it's a little bit different tune. If we want a different tune, Congress shouldn't have adopted it in the 30s. But that's a story for another time. I thought the beginning was fine. I don't mind a few note changes. She just did a variation, first of all. Secondly, she did it in the key we need to teach it anyway. It's a little bit more comfortable key. It's only... about half. It's a step down, and we should teach it in that, because once you get to the high note, it's kind of a break note for a lot of people, and that's what they find uncomfortable about the national anthem. But I thought her ending was horrible. It was a terrible tone of voice. It's not something I want to hear. It does not stir anything in me. Not the end of it. The beginning to the middle was fine, but the ending was horrible. Her vocal tone was horrible. It's offensive. That's offensive. You don't do that. It was offensive at the end.
And forgive me, when you say her vocal tone was offensive, are you saying that she was off key?
No, it was a bad tone. There's a difference. You can be in key and have a horrible tone. That was horrible. It was like she was straining it out of her body. And that's not how the national anthem I think should end. The beginning was fine. It was nice. She changed a few notes. Big deal. Big furry deal. People have been doing that forever. Trust me, there's a lot of versions out there. But that ending, oh, Lord. I mean, I thought, was she having a baby? I mean, honestly, it was that it's like, she's having a baby. It's coming.
I bet you were a fun music teacher, Ellen.
I was a nut. But but I enjoyed it, and I taught every boy and girl at least what it was,
Good
and
for
they
you.
sang it. Bless their little heart.
Good for you.
I was proud. I was happy to do it.
Ellen,
anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you called. I appreciate that. And by the way, one of our earlier open mics said that the Jewel version was just so long, and he said he was in the Navy Color Guard, and that if he was in the Color Guard waiting for her to finish that one, he would have just grown tired because the rendition was so long. So Jewel's version was 2 minutes and 22 seconds long, about 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, and I looked it up, and the average length of a rendition of the U.S. national anthem is 119 seconds, so just under 2 minutes. So that open mic was right, that this was a longer version here's another.
The normal national anthem is sung in 52 seconds.
So that's not right. It's sung in just under 2 minutes. And Paul Cross looked it up, Laurel. What did he say the Whitney Houston rendition was?
It was somewhere between 156 and 158, so yeah just under 2 minutes.
So even one of the most widely acclaimed, widely praised versions of the national anthem in recent decades was still just under 2 minutes.
She did it in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I think that is probably most of the reason why people don't like it, because it's just way too drawn drawn out.
Isn't that ironic that 20 seconds of our time is too much time? 20 seconds is too much. If you can't do it in less than 2 minutes, then we're not interested.
Hey, Joe Kelley, Slowbo. You might not know this, but I am a Marine. So when I heard Jewel do the Star Spangled Banner that you just played for us, I was very, very moved. I cry almost every time I hear it, depending on the situation. But Jewel's version, definitely brought a tear to me. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, to each his own. And then interesting how a Marine gets choked up still to this day hearing that and loved her version. Let's go to Orlando. Chad is joining us at 844-580-WDBO. Chad, you're on the Joe Kelley Show. How are you?
Hey, Joe. How you doing, brother?
Great, thanks.
Yeah, on the Jewel, when I saw Jewel, I was kind of glad to see her initially because I hadn't seen her sing for, 30 years. And then when she started singing, I didn't really care for the way she sang it, but it didn't surprise me because that's how all of her songs sound.
Oh, that's interesting.
The tone,
Sure.
the inflection.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's cool. And then I was like inside glad that she wasn't singing it, at least like Roseanne Barr did. And then I started realizing, this is taking a little while longer, and I wasn't too happy about that. But then at the very end, if you look at the video, I think somebody was off stage telling her to drag her song out a little longer because it showed the planes coming in, the jets flying over, and they flew over right when she finished her song. And if she would have finished 30, 40 seconds earlier, then the jets would have flown over 30, 40 seconds after the song was over. So I think she was told maybe to drag it out because the planes flew over her head exactly on her last note.
That is interesting. I did watch the planes, but I didn't see anybody motioning to her to drag it out at all. But that is interesting, and the planes did make that flyover just at the perfect timing at the end of her song. The precision of those pilots, the precision of those planes is so spot on. It blows my mind how they're able to be able to fly over right as that song is hitting its crescendo and right when it's in its peak part there.
That would be bippity boppity. No. No way. Nope. Not gonna happen. Forget about it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put you down for no then on the bippity boppity boo crossdresser.
Hey Joe, I think that was the best way to put it. That the illusion was broken when you see a fairy godmother apprentice wearing a dress with a mustache. But please don't call him a man. He can be a male at this point. And the only time you'd see a man in a dress is because they lost a bet.
It's so weird these days when we see so many pictures of people that, that crop up and I don't remember if it was Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband or Lauren Boebert's husband or one of them. They're interchangeable to me. But one of them, she's dating a guy, and he was in drag at one point. I went through college. I was in a fraternity. I never in my life, ever have I worn women's clothing. And it blows my mind the number of men that have worn women's clothing. Similarly, I've never worn blackface, Justin Trudeau. It blows my mind the number of people who have worn blackface. It astounds me about that.
Yeah, this is Kevin from Apopka. I'm at Disney every day for work, and I've seen a few men out there that were dressed as waitresses in Epcot and a couple other resorts out there. I'd be livid if I was there with my family spending money and some dude in drag came up to wait on me.
All right, let us know your thoughts. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Coming up here in just a couple of minutes, there is an auto mechanic in Tallahassee who has, one of these letter boards outside where you can put up, your sign of the day. And he put a pretty vulgar sign up that kind of honored veterans and absolutely blasted the LGBTQ community. We'll have that for you coming up next. Stay right where you are.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Your next chance to win the WDBO payroll payout of $1,000 happens tomorrow at 8 a.m. during Orlando's morning news. Just listen for the keyword and then tap the payroll payout button in the WDBO app.
$1,000. $1,000.
Get paid just for listening to WDBO.
This is awesome.
Oh, we finally got a comment about freeze drying your pets. For like $3,000 when your pet dies, you can have your pet freeze dried, and then you can put it up on display somewhere in your house. I just think that's weird. I think it's creepy. I think there are times where you just have to let go. Let go. I mean, because we're all gonna die. None of us are here forever. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And having your cat or dog freeze dried, to me is perhaps a sign of mental illness. I don't know. It seems a bit much for sure.
Joe, I hope Kitty George Washington isn't listening. Please do not freeze dry our boy.
A, not a boy. B, yeah, there's no way I'm going to freeze dry Kitty George Washington when she dies, just because I'll still be cleaning up her fur everywhere. The freeze drying is not going to keep the fur all in place, is it? Will it? If I just rub glue all over it, would that keep the fur from going everywhere, one wonders?
I am so done with Disney. Time to cancel the family's annual passes, because when Disney keeps pushing this on their customers and on kids, this transgender, they have gone too far. Time to start hitting them financially, just like Bud Light and just like Target.
Now, speaking about going too far, let me introduce you to a Tallahassee auto mechanic that a lot of people are talking about today and over the weekend. You know how a lot of small businesses will have the little reader boards out front, little signboards, and you can put the letters up there. And this guy put up a message that is, well, it certainly is controversial. Bigoted, perhaps. He put up a sign that reads, and I'm not going to be able to read all of this because there are certain words here that I just won't say on the radio, but the sign reads, "Veterans get a day." And then you know that F word that some Brits used to use, or I don't know if they still do, but you know that F word they use to describe a cigarette? You know what word I'm talking about? Starts with an F and then it ends with GS. So veterans get a day, and then the F word and child molesters get a month. Why? And that was the sign that the guy put up. And you know, it's really interesting because it has divided people in that community in Tallahassee, with some saying, well, now I know where my new mechanic is. I know what mechanic I'm going to take my car to now. Someone would see a sign like that and think, I definitely want to take my car there to get fixed. I want a guy who puts a sign up that says veterans get a day and gays and child molesters get a month. Why? Whereas others, of course, as you might imagine, the exact opposite. Others are saying this is an embarrassment to the Tallahassee community. It's embarrassment to the people at Rick's Repair Shop. They should be ashamed of their foolish, hurtful, and wrong words. I will tell you that I'm just not a fan of dividing people. I don't come here every night with red meat and try to divide people. In fact, quite the opposite. I try to bring people together. And there are some people who just don't want to be brought together. There are some people who just want to be angry. They want to be in their silo, and they just want to be they want to be right. However you define that, they don't want to be happy. They want to be right. And I constantly go back to the Bible. That is my owner's manual, the Bible, and I go back to the Bible about loving your neighbor. And as it was explained to me by a dear friend of mine, you can't love your neighbor unless you actually meet your neighbors. And I frankly think that we have more in common with our neighbors than we have not in common with our neighbors. And I'm just not a fan of people who seek to divide. I know sometimes we have discussions, and by virtue of stating our opinions about things, we divide people. But I am not one to deliberately try to divide. Thus, as I said, I don't throw out red meat. I don't throw out topics and discussions hoping to divide people. And that is exactly what this mechanic has done. He has put up a message hoping to divide people. Veterans get a day. The F word and child molesters get a month. Why? And, you know, it's not about whether or not his message, if you strip away the vulgarity of his words, and if you were just to say, why do veterans get one day and the LGBTQ community gets a month, I'll have that discussion with you. I will. I mean, I think that's a valid discussion to have. But it is not a valid way to start that discussion. It is not a valid way to initiate that discussion. I don't have any interest in having a discussion with someone that is going to use that kind of language. What do you think? 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326, or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Much taller. Oh, my gosh. It is an optical illusion. I am much taller on the radio. It's an audible illusion, right? I sound like I'm like 7 feet tall, and I am. So that's kind of cool. I loved Governor DeSantis was asked about the attacks from Donald Trump, and I loved how Governor DeSantis answered this question.
So you talked about changing your tone a little bit with former President Trump. I don't believe you mentioned him here by name tonight, but does this mean you're going to be a bit more aggressive with campaigning against him?
So look, I'm going to respond to attacks. I mean, if you say Cuomo did a better job with COVID than Florida did, first of all, that's not what he used to say. This is like new. Like 6 months ago, he would have never said that, right? He used to say how great Florida was. Hell, his whole family moved to Florida under my governorship. Are you kidding me? So some of this stuff, I think, is, look, if someone is saying that, I am gonna counterpunch. I'm gonna fight back on it. I'm gonna focus my fire on Biden. And I think he should do the same. He gives Biden a free pass. I'm focusing on Biden. That's my focus.
Yeah. Man, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Focus your fire on the actual opponent, and that is going to be Joe Biden. I loved that response there from Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis also, in an advantage over Donald Trump, has military service. Donald Trump went out of his way to avoid military service, whereas Ron DeSantis signed up for military service, and I loved his commentary about his military service.
We also need to restore integrity to our institutions. I'm a Navy veteran. I was proud to have served. I served in Iraq, as was mentioned. I had a lot of opportunities in life because I had worked hard to put myself in that position, starting off with very little. And so I could have made a lot more money. But I wanted to serve. This was after September 11th, and I thought it was the right thing to do. And, you know, it was something that I was very proud of. You can have all the money in the world, but that doesn't match the satisfaction of being able to wear the cloth of your own country and serving a higher purpose. And that's what we did. And so many people that served during that time, I think, feel the same way. And yet we look at our military now and we see them getting caught up in political ideology, gender pronouns, talking about global warming. We need to reorient things like the military back to its core mission. Is it any wonder why recruiting has suffered? People don't want to be part of a woke military. They want to be a part of a military that has its eyes on the prize.
Amen, amen, amen. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Use the open mic and the WDBO app. In Orlando, Mark is joining us on WDBO. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. First, thanks again for taking my call, and want to commend your approach to trying to bring people together versus separate them. I served in the military, and I want to comment on that in a second, what you just played in a second. And where I went in my deployments to Bosnia, and Iraq. I saw the results of pushing differences over similarities, especially like in Bosnia. They focused on ethnicities, and in Iraq you're talking about religion, and the hate was palpable.
Yeah.
In the environment, and what all that leads to is eventually an authoritarian government. Because I want to be more right. You said you're correct. Is more right, or the fact that I've been raised to believe that my way is the only way, and therefore that's it. And if anyone else is doing something different, they're wrong. Whether it's ethnic, skin color, race, religion, or now sexual orientation being an issue. It all leads to disaster eventually. So we need to wake up as a society and just, deal with like you do, deal with differences in a civil way.
And Mark, you hear some of the anger in the calls and particularly the open mics. There are a lot of people carrying around a lot of anger about the status quo of the United States today. And I'll be the first to tell you that the U.S. has been circling the drain for a while now, but I haven't given up on the United States, and I'm not angry. I don't lash out at people if they don't share my beliefs.
Right, and I'm in a minority religion myself, but the only other thing I want to say about the military service aspect, respecting the governor, they did do his military service. His service was with the JAG Corps. It's a little different than trying to, and maybe he doesn't infer it, but it almost sounds like he's saying I was in a combat zone. It doesn't mean he was in combat.
Sure.
But it is far above, far and away above what Cadet Bone Spurs did. So I'm with you there.
All right. Thank you, Mark, so much, man. I appreciate your service. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your call. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Use the open mic in the WDBO app. This as Joe Biden. The White House declines to say if Joe Biden is going to hold any campaign rallies. It's one thing to not debate. And at this point, Joe Biden does not evidently want to debate. But to not even hold campaign rallies, I don't understand not holding campaign rallies. You might have heard a little bit of this today, but this is the actor James Van Der Beek. This was a Memorial Day video that he posted out in front of his home. What would we know him from? Dawson's Creek and something else. James Van Der Beek. But he's ranting here against the DNC. I'm going to assume he's a Democrat because he's from Hollywood, so there's odds are real good he's a liberal Democrat. And he's taking issue with the Democratic Party. He makes no reference to the Republicans, I don't believe, here. But listen to actor James Van Der Beek and his thoughts on Joe Biden not only not participating in campaign rallies, but not participating in a debate.
I'm walking my dogs, pulling a weight sled with my kid in it, and I cannot get over the fact that the Democratic National Committee is saying there will not be a debate to decide the nominee for president. Are you kidding me? There's no debate. There's no debate over an 80-year-old man who, if he lives, will be the oldest sitting president in the history of the country. And if he doesn't live, has a vice president whose approval rating is worse than his. This guy is obviously declining mental faculties. You're putting him up in front of a podium with flashcards telling him who to call on and what the questions are going to be. You're telling us there's no debate? What about the will of the people? And let's just not even the will of the people. What about the will of the people who voted for the guy last time? Because of those people, 72% think there ought to be a debate. Of the people who voted for Biden last election, 72% want a debate. So the DNC is openly ignoring, bypassing the will of the people.
He goes on. I got to tell you, I don't much care for James Van Der Beek as an actor, but I do like that message. If you want to see the whole the whole video. He recorded it, and I think he posted it on a TikTok page. But I've got the whole thing right now. Just open up the WDBO app and look for the headline that says, "Do your effing job." That's what he eventually says there. You can also get more information about the freeze-drying your pets in this story in the WDBO app. And if you want to see the male Disney cast member wearing a dress, makeup, and a mustache, that is also available in this story in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know.
3. The NBA Finals begin Thursday. The Nuggets will host the Miami Heat for Game 1 in Denver tomorrow evening. The Nuggets make their first ever appearance in the NBA Finals, while the Heat are set to make their second appearance in the NBA Finals in the last 4 years. 2. The Atlantic hurricane season officially starts Thursday. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is forecasting 12 to 17 named storms, with 5 to 9 of those becoming hurricanes. The National Hurricane Center says a system in the eastern Gulf of Mexico has a low chance of becoming the season's first hurricane. 1. The House is approving a key rule for the debt ceiling bill, settling it up for final passage later this evening. The rule passed 241 to 187, with 29 Republicans voting against it. The rule now allows the House to debate the debt ceiling bill on the floor and final vote on the legislation.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
All right, I got a lot of good open mics, and then every now and again there's bad open mics, and I will play any open mic that disagrees with me. What I will not play is people who are jerks. If you want to be a jerk, then be a jerk all by yourself, and don't make me part of your jerkdom. We don't have an interest. We don't have time for that, man. We just don't. But this open mic, really, I can appreciate this open mic. I don't think this guy's being a jerk. In fact, I think he's being really, really nice. But I love this guy's open mic.
Joe, I haven't heard the whole program this afternoon, but I can tell that some I agree, some I don't. You make me want to pull my hair out. I don't have much, so I'm not going to do that. But, I love you. But then I love you.
I will absolutely take that. Thank you very, very, very much. That's very nice of you to say. On the Jewel National Anthem, I think this open mic also has a valid point.
Hi, Joe. The rendition of the National Anthem was pretty good, except it would be really hard to sing along with her on that.
You know, it was interesting because the cameramen, the photogs at the Indy 500, when Jewel was singing the National Anthem, they kind of scanned the crowd on a couple of occasions, and the crowd looked bewildered. The crowd was like, what is happening here? And I did notice that virtually nobody was singing along with the national anthem. Now, I will tell you that when I'm either at a sporting event or church, I never sing along at sporting events or church. And I know that going to church and hearing the music and hearing the spiritual music and singing, I mean, I know that that's an important part of one's spiritual life, but I cannot sing, and I don't find singing enjoyable. So I don't sing along with the national anthem, and I don't sing along at church. But I did see one, it might have been a driver or a team owner, but I saw one person singing along with Jewel, and that was it. There was only one person I saw singing along out of that crowd. My name is Joe Kelley. On behalf of Laurel and Paul and Arushi and Sophie and everybody who's a part of this team, thank you so much. Coming up next, the third hour of the Sean Hannity Show. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.